This is the Page Publishing Book Club. How you doing? I'm Alice Stockton Rossini. I don't think there are many people who haven't heard about or who've actually been touched by the opioid epidemic in the U.S. There are towns all across the country being ravaged by heroin. And because it's so cheap, kids are willing to try it, and so often with deadly consequences, leaving devastated families behind. On Riding a Bike Blindfolded is one mother's story. A mom who loved her son with all of her heart, but it just wasn't enough to drag him away from the beast.
My name is Lori Nelson, and I currently live in Pendleton, Indiana. I own a small cleaning business, and I guess I can say I was inspired to write this book because it is my son's words. He left journals behind, and I found them. And it was very obvious that he wanted his story to get out there to possibly help other people not go through what he had went through as a heroin addict. It begins with, if you are reading this, I am dead. It is told all through Scott's words with him trying to reach out to these kids who may be thinking about, oh, it'll be cool to try to get high and see what it feels like. Scott started with alcohol and pot at about 12 years old when his father divorced me and he felt abandoned. He has actually 26 pages of arrests from the time he was 18 until he passed away at 28. He actually had walked out of rehab in Indiana and went to Wilmington, North Carolina, to be with the woman that he loved. She was living with another man. They were still seeing each other. He found a job as a chef in a small restaurant, and as far as his journals say, everything was great. He was waiting to have a romantic dinner with his girlfriend, and for whatever reason, he went out to get some heroin 2 or 3 nights before she was due back into Wilmington. And what he received was not heroin, it was fentanyl, enough to kill 12 people.
Oh, my God. I'm so sorry.
The back of the book, I have a message to parents, and then there are important notes for the parents so they could read and understand my point of view about so many people will say, well, not my kid, not in my neighborhood. That's not true. Scott he lived in a very affluent neighborhood, went to some of the best schools in Indiana, was a talented athlete. He has some of his artwork is on a artist colony in Indianapolis. Still to this day, he did it about 7 years ago. So, it can happen to anyone.
When you found out at the age of 12, what did you do?
I took Scott to a counselor because it was so shortly after the divorce, and the counselor basically said he was fine, go out and be a boy. At hindsight now, I wonder if that was a very good thing to say to a 12-year-old boy. But, I did everything I thought what I could do. Throughout the years, searched downtown Indianapolis in the middle of the night looking for him, took him to the local hospitals to try and get help, which is almost impossible to do if you do not have insurance. At one point in time, I finally had to say, that's enough, you're no longer welcome in my home, because I had a younger son, and there were threats of Child Protective Services taking him away because we found out Scott was dealing drugs out of his bedroom. So, about the time the SWAT team came and almost broke down my front door, I decided that was enough, that the tough love had to take effect.
Oh, my God. My heart just breaks for you. This is a
Thank
wonderful
you.
thing.
Yeah.
This is a wonderful thing you've done, though. I mean, it just sounds like he was a really decent kid. And the thing is you don't know how these events in life will affect a child.
Yeah.
Yeah,
there are so many effects, and Scott talks in the book about them. He calls them gizmos in your brain. And you don't know if you have these gizmos in your brain until sometimes it's too late. You may be able to shoot up heroin and it not have any effect on you, or this gizmo may take effect of your brain and the only way you can stop it is months and months of rehab or death. And unfortunately, there's a lot of contributing factors, which we now find as far as children who have been abused, who have suffered a traumatic experience like divorce, if parents or grandparents have a mental disease or alcoholism. All of that factors into your craving and addiction for drugs. I was going to go and speak with some exchange club. They're a service organization. My father belongs to one here locally, and they are all about helping abused children. So with things starting to open up now, I'm going to start reaching out and getting some more publicity out there. Social media is really doing very well. I have an actual page on Facebook for the book, and I have a tattoo on my arm that says he was more than an addict. So I get a lot of people asking about that. And when they do, I have business cards with the picture of the book, the name of the book, and where it is available, and I hand them a card. Yeah, I'm pretty much a walking billboard. I have a bumper sticker with a syringe with a line through it, it says no heroin. I have people stop me and ask, can I ask your story? And I tell them, we've got to get the word out. We can't hide.
What do you mean on riding a bike blindfolded?
It is so vague. Scott, in one of his stories, he is trying to impress upon people how stupid doing drugs is. And he is saying something to the effect, would you ride a bike down the street blindfolded, not knowing where you were going? To me, that's perfect, because that is something that he would have done.
Well, you're doing something great in his memory, Lori, so...
Thank you.
Our next author is lucky he's alive to tell his story after a childhood and health issues that would have challenged even the most mentally and emotionally stable among us. Of Substance, a memoir, surfaced through dealing with the death of a parent.
This is Cameron Park, and I really just fell into the world of writing kind of head first. I didn't start out thinking that I would become a professional author. I started journaling after my father passed away, and my mother-in-law got a hold of it and asked me, "Hey, Cameron, did this actually happen?" I said, this did happen. So she sent me to Starbucks and said, "Okay, write some more." And I just kind of did a marathon journal session. 7-8 hours sitting writing the first 2 chapters of my book, and when she read it, and she was like, "Okay, you know what, you're gonna be a writer now." So I was really blessed to be put in this position where I could pursue a full-length manuscript. I got the whole manuscript completed in about 8 months, and I was able to get it published, and it's been kind of a whirlwind ever since. It's about going through the process of settling my father's affairs after he unexpectedly passed away. That he was in an accident, and it was a head trauma, and I went up to Utah for the funeral, and I went through some pretty turbulent events in my childhood, and I got a lot of these flashbacks, and I revisited when my parents went through their divorce, when my father had some difficulties in his life. I was diagnosed with epilepsy when I was 15 years old, just as my parents were getting divorced. And after his separation with my mother, he met this man. There were several traumatic experiences. I was staying with my father and his partner under a false pretense. They were claiming that my mother was a drug addict, which turned out not to be the case. And they ended up keeping me hostage, and I thought that it would be a safer place for me to be because, according to them, my mother was an unfit parent. After I was convinced to sever ties with my mother, Mike Burton, the boyfriend, started binge drinking, doing drugs, and I was thrown in headfirst into the world of homosexual clubbing and fights. There's a part in my book where I have to defend myself with a broken bottle because Mike Burton came at me kind of a drunken rage after he had just beaten up my father. And I was still in a position of having to keep the existence of Mike Burton a secret because if anyone found out that Mike Burton were living with my father, there would have been a significant legal mess. So I ended up having to defend myself against Mike Burton. I beat him over the head with a vodka bottle, and I had to clean up the mess in the street. My father backed his car through a garage door and into the middle of the street. And I was 14 or 15 at the time, and I ended up driving the car down the road to hide the evidence. I just waited in the street until morning to wait for the blackout drunkenness to dissipate. And
It sounds like a running with scissors kind of a crazy, just crazy. Were you able to have a normal life?
Yeah, and that's the crazy thing. I never thought in a million years that I would make it out of my childhood alive or even with a shred of normalcy. But I ended up having generalized tonic-clonic seizures, 12 to 14 a day, and was able to pursue brain surgery. I had a resection of my right frontal lobe, which cured all of the seizures. And so I went into college. I got a job, a driver's license, and met this amazing woman that within a year we were married. And I now have two beautiful daughters. One's 4, the other one's 1.5. And I'm trying to pursue this writing career, and I've just found through the experience of writing my book that it is an amazing thing, no matter what circumstances someone is under in their childhood or really in any point in their life. Life is always messy, but it is also so beautiful. So that's my dream, is to kind of bottle and distribute these life stories of people who go through uncertain circumstances.
All right, Cameron, thank you. I can't imagine anything more painful than losing a child, but parents do, and they manage to survive. And in the case of our next author, he gives back through writing Strangled by Life, Saved by Death.
My name is Charles D MacPhail. I live in Berkeley, Michigan, great state of Michigan. I own a small little business called the Recipe Kit Warehouse. We have a spice store and put together all these recipes from all the famous chefs on TV. It's pretty neat. Been in business 6 years. But actually, I opened up the business out of respect for my daughter. Me and her were foodies and always had cooking contests. And me and her came up with the business. So unfortunately, she had passed away about a month before her 10th birthday. She had cancer, leukemia, matter of fact. And I didn't start off with the intent to write a book. I just wanted to jot things down just in her memory. I was so petrified that I was going to forget things over time, forget, our memories. I think any parent that might have lost a child or lost a loved one has that same concern. So I just started jotting things down, and then over time I started to note like the different grieving stages that we had went through, and was like, hey, there's a book here. You could help other families even to relive my nightmare over and over and over again. It was worth it to get the story out and help people through a loss of a loved one. It doesn't have to even be a child. It can be a loss of just a best friend. And a lot of people go through drugs and alcohol and depression and things like that. So if it could help eliminate any of those for anybody, it would be well worth, my time and stress. And
I mean, according to your blurb, you didn't just lose your daughter, you lost your house. What happened?
When my daughter passed, My wife actually, she was one that went into a major depression. So, God, I didn't understand it. Looking on the outside, I'm going, hey, we got a 5-year-old still to deal with. He still needs Christmas. He still needs love. He still needs help with homework. And she had absolutely just shut down for almost a year or so. It was like living with the shell of a person. And we've been together since 13 and 14 years old. So, and actually that same night, the night it happened, I lost both, right at the same time, lost my wife and my daughter. We almost got divorced over it. And we met to see who's getting the U-Haul, and she had broke down, asked for a little bit more time, and of course I would do that. I just wanted to see some kind of life in her, and it took maybe 3 or 4 months, and then she finally broke out of it, and years later she's doing great. We're both at a good stage in our grieving process where, we have a nice cry about things, and then we get back to life, and we just don't let it just tear us down. But if she didn't go through that, I might have went into a shell too, With her doing that, I had to be mom, dad, everything in between. So it sort of kept me on the right path with myself.
The name of your book is Strangled by Life, Saved by Death. So through her death, you found something else.
The strangled by life, again, that's why I say it doesn't have to be a loss of a child. It could be a loss of a best friend. It could just be the struggles of life in general. It's everything that we go through on a daily basis. This is the devil's world down here. It's not heaven, that's for sure. So there's, war, famine, sickness. I mean, look at 2020. I mean, we could all probably read this book who's went through 2020 here. It's been horrible. So it's just the strangles of life, and that's where the book, hence the name of the book comes in. Strangled by life, because down here it's horrible, and things everyday life is difficult for a lot of people, and it's strangled by life, and then representing the saved by death is Jesus' crucifixion, and promising us eternal life, and so that's where the saved by death is. So we're how the title came up. So give people comfort of, because there's people that are still Christians that when they lose somebody or go through hard times, they start to struggle with their faith. And I'm hoping to bring people to God, and I'm also hoping to the ones that are struggling with their faith to realize to hold on, that there is hope and, better days ahead. I've actually been passing out free books because I haven't any royalties or any money I've made from this. I actually roll back into giving out free books to grieving centers and depression treatment centers. So I've yet to, I roll all those back into giving my book out to those people. So it's all about just helping the other people, people who are going through some hard times.
I couldn't think of a better reason to write a book, Charles. Really. Right?
Thank you. Yes.
All right. And with that, we're going to take a very short break, but we're coming right back. This is the Page Publishing Book Club.
Have you written a book and want to get it published? Then now's the time to call Page Publishing at 800-204-6099 and do it immediately. You see, they're looking for authors of all types of books. And unlike most publishers, Page Publishing will take the time to review most of the books submitted to them. And they'll even give you their feedback. And if they like what they read, Page Publishing will get your book into bookstores and for sale online at Amazon, the Apple iTunes Store, and other outlets. They'll handle everything. Copyright protection, printing, cover art, publicity, and editing. So if you've written a novel, a children's book, a cookbook, inspirational work, a book of poetry, or biography, and want to get it published, then you need to call Page Publishing and do it immediately. Call 800-204-6099 now for your free author submission kit. Your road to fame and fortune could very well start with this simple phone call. For your free author submission kit, call Page Publishing at 800-204-6099.
And we are back on the Page Publishing Book Club. I'm Alice Stockton Rossini, a licensed cosmetologist with a chain of hair salons who grew up in a rough neighborhood. Our next author imagines what it would be like to get back at all the kids who bullied, embarrassed, and berated him in his book, Furilla, the Serial Killer.
So my name is Farad Lewis, known as Don Furilla. I grew up in the city of Chicago, the Inglewood area. I started writing years ago. I did 13 years and 2 months in prison on the bed, and I became an avid reader. I read everything that I put my hands on. So that's what really inspired me to start writing.
Why were you in prison?
I was accused of being a drug kingpin out of Chicago. In 1992, I was arrested in a federal indictment for really actually having too much money. I was a venture capitalist then. I was engaging in businesses, and they say that I was laundering drug money through my business. That's what I actually went to prison for. I wrote a few books. I already have 7 of them complete. This is the second one that's been released so far. So, Furilla the serial killer, it's about a guy that was being bullied. It grew up in the Inglewood area of Chicago. It's one of the most dangerous areas in the city. And little did they know he was going to grow up to be a professional hitman and work for mob type figures, doing hits with his crew of assassins. But he held grudges on the people that bullied him when he was younger, no matter if they became dentists, doctors, lawyers, or if they were bums on the street. He didn't care. He just went back to seek revenge, because the message is you never know who you might be bullying or messing with, even as a young child. You know what I mean? Right. People grow up and, everybody mind is different. So, the message is to just be humble and leave people alone. Let them live their life. I'm actually working on Furilla the Serial Killer 2. It's actually a series about a vigilante. I mean, if you like stuff like Dexter, you know what I mean, or they like Power.
Are you going back to your old neighborhood saying, hey, I wrote this book?
Actually, I just had a book signing on my birthday on August the 16th. I had a book signing. I took a lot of orders in. And, I'm getting it out with word of mouth, social media, friends, family, much press as I can get.
Let me ask you this. How was your book signing? I think you're the first book signing I've heard of since the pandemic.
Right. And it actually went well. We social distanced. People came in, ordered the books, put deposits. They cash apped me and sent me money for orders of their books. I already ordered mine, more books, and my customer books through Page Publishing. I'm waiting on them to be delivered now.
How did that work out?
Everybody had on their masks, meeted and greeted. I signed a few books. I got to talk about the book and explain to them what was really going on and how Furilla the Serial Killer was, if they would like shows like Empire and Power and any type of serial killer, they'll love my book.
Now, just like Dexter, there was a case like every week. There was somebody, right, that he was going to exact justice on. So what's the case in this book?
The people he's after actually are people that was harassing club owners, trying to shake them down for money. You know what I mean? And the club owner actually put hits on these guys because it was like a gang out of Inglewood area, Chicago, that was harassing them, trying to make them pay taxes every week, every month. So he took on contracts from these guys. The next one coming out is called They Let a Gangster Go. Follow up from True Gangsters Don't Fold, my first book. So, excellent. Like I say, hopefully everything will go well.
All right. I second that, Don. Thank you. 18 years with the Social Security Administration left Vanessa Ann Bates with a treasure trove of stories that she shares in her book, Social Security Behind the Scenes.
The book is about adventures, personal relationships that I had while I was in the Social Security Administration. Some of it is funny, real funny, and some of it is heartbreaking. I'll give you an example of the funny part. These 2 rustic old men came in the office and said, "Ma'am, we need a Social Security card." And I said, "Well, fill out the application on the counter and I'll process it for you." And they said, "Ma'am, we can't read in the daytime because we went to night school." And so we had to process application for them. What you can do for people, for God, is more than money. It could be a smile, or you can say hello, or you can fill out an application for somebody who may change their life, to get an education or to get something to eat. Something. You can bless a person by God using you through so many different aspects. Another example, this lady came in with her 2 children, and they were fidgety, And I said, "Damn, why did you give your little girl, a big girl, a haircut?" Most of the time when little girls, they have no braids or a little kid's hairdo. And she said, "Ma'am, I'm here because of the police department. My husband want to have incest with my baby girl, 5 years old." Oh. And she's so upset that her hair is falling out in bundles.
And so the only thing I could do was cut it off in a big girl haircut so that it wouldn't be so obvious. And she says, can you help me? And I researched the law books while she was there. And I found out that in police instances, you can give a person a new Social Security card because you're only supposed to be issued one in a lifetime. Right. But you can, for police protection and life-threatening situations, you can issue a new Social Security card. So I gave her a new Social Security card, and they had a brand new life. It's a dedication to my father. He went to the first grade. His mother died early, and his father died early. And the neighbors took him in, and they didn't educate him. They made him work. He knew how to read 3-letter words, and he was good at math. But he overcame all adversities and opened a trash removal business. And his whole, I'm going to get Social Security when I get old, when he gets 65 years old. But the law states that you have to be aged before, if you're self-employed, or either give up your business or turn it over to another relative or liquidate it. When he became aged, he died and never got 1 cent from Social Security. Oh, God. And my job was to help all mankind get Social Security benefits. So I helped everybody, but I couldn't help my father.
Oh, Vanessa, that kills me, man. Life just isn't fair. But you know what? You more than made up for it with this book, all right? So there you have it. That is it for this edition of the Page Publishing Book Club. Thank you so much for being here. We had some really mind-blowing stories, didn't we, on this show? Woo. What's yours? Got one? Come on. We're waiting. If you missed anything, go to 710WOR.com and download the podcast. And Monday through Friday, 6 to 10 a.m., check out Len and Michael in the morning. They're always sending me out to get in people's faces. Otherwise, they're getting in each other's faces. You got to hear it to believe it. All right. I'm Alice Stockton Rossini. I'll see you next time.